What is up, everyone? It's Wizard101, and today we're going to be talking about what I consider to be my all-time favorite world, Khrysalis. If you see me in comment sections or live streams of other WizTubers, I'm always defending Khrysalis. However, not everyone feels the same way about this world that I do, so I'm here today for my 100 sub special to talk about why I love Khrysalis so much and potentially change some minds. Before we get started, I'm opening up a Discord server that'll be linked in the description if you want to join, and keep in mind that this is all merely my opinion and you can disagree if you want to. I'll be using footage of my balance questing through Khrysalis in this video. And with all that being said, let's get into why I think Khrysalis is a great world and my all-time favorite in Wiz. Khrysalis was once a thriving world filled with burrowers, bees, sugar gliders, manti, other assortments of bugs, and arachna. These groups lived with some corals, but things were peaceful for a large part, until the arachna nation attacked with her newfound leader, Morganth. She starts by visiting all of the astral structures in the world and disposing of them once she leaves to keep her power secure. After visiting the Moon Tower and Moon Cliffs, she kills the guards and destroys the Moon Bridge there after installing the Moon Trainer. After visiting the Solar Arc and obtaining the lenses, she brought it down from the sky and burnt down the once lush Kana forest into a desert that only these Australian hoppers could occupy. Scary stuff, am I right? And last but not least, when she couldn't learn star spells from the Radiant Alcazar, she brought the stars down, resulting in everyone dying in the new ruined Alcazar, and the creation of the Starfall Sea, which now could only host the worst of beasts we have to face in combat. It's not only the things that Morganth did to the astral schools of the world, it's how much power she has over the people in Khrysalis as well, and the many fronts that she has with them. The Arachna are aware of her motives and serve her for a prophecy. The Manti think of her as a good leader that values their well-being until it's revealed she's monitoring all of them and even tries to destroy their council when the wizard tries to talk to them. The Hoppers had their home reduced into dust and can't even fight against her, and she put the Queen of Bees, Queen Sabina, under a spell so that she had to serve her until the wizard freed her, and her victory was all but certain with her pushing the burrowers into the last wood, and her absolutely obliterating Bastion until the wizard appears to save the day. Morganth's tendrils run deep in this world and it's our job to undo them. Morganth left a pack of destruction in her wake, but we're rebuilding the world piece by piece. She's already conquered it, but it's not too late for us to take it back. Throughout the story, we get one victory after another, and we're not alone in this fight either, as we have companions such as Divin Whiteheart and allies like Zoltana the Mirror Mask, and we all work together in order to break the Shadow Queen's control over this once great world of Khrysalis that thus far has only been described by Merle Ambrose as a wasteland filled with dark magic. The next section will be about the impact that our wizard has over Khrysalis and how we see our work result in progress overall in this long uphill battle against the Shadow. This aspect is honestly what makes Khrysalis my favorite world in the game by far. This section is about why I love the story. I feel Khrysalis is where we make the most progress or impact, or at least the most visible progress or impact of any world in Arc 2, and honestly the game thus far. When we free Queen Sabina from Morganth's control, we see the Moon Cliffs become a better place. We also see Bastion restored from the dark husk of what it was under Morganth's control, with a slow and depressing theme to boot, into a light and vibrant place where life spread once again, and the theme even changes to a piece literally called Bastion Thrives, which we'll be playing in the background. Even in the ruined Alcazar, after venturing to get there by crossing the dreadful Starfall Sea and being bosses to reunite the celestial bodies, we make Radiance Reborn. Every mob fight, every boss fight, every collect and interact quest, we are lessening Morganth's grip upon this world and slowly making it closer and closer to beating her in her Shadow Palace. It's a feeling we don't really get in every world, and honestly, thus far, we've only been trying to prevent the destructions of other worlds, or we've been to worlds where it's too late, in Celestia and Dragonspyre's cases. But in Khrysalis, we're actively waging war on the Shadow Queen and her oppression, learn the great world Khrysalis once was, and fight to restore its former glory. I really love that they changed zones like Bastion and seeing things like Radiance Reborn, and I really wish that KI continues to do things like this in future worlds, and I hope that they do actually take the opportunity and do things like this in Arc 5. It was a great way to showcase our uphill battle against Shadow and Morganth as we slowly build up what Morganth has destroyed generations ago. Defeating her warlords also feels like knocking down pillars of her control, as you slowly see her losing her composure as she becomes more and more afraid of what's coming for her. Even small feats like destroying Morganth's Shadow Eyes and Sardonyx make you feel like you're undoing the tendrils placed by Morganth many generations ago. The first moment of breaking Morganth's control as far as I could think of right now was in Mooncliffs when we restored the Eclipse Tower and went to learn Shadow Magic. In retrospect, the Moonbridge appearing from thin air was probably one of the coolest things I've seen in this game so far, and Shadow Magic, which we're introduced to in that tower, is now a staple in the game overall. In the end, well, we can't say Khrysalis has been fully restored to its original glory. We beat Morganth and freed this world of her influence. Now it's up to the inhabitants of Khrysalis to pick up where we left off and start to rebuild. Tragedy. Wiz tackles a theme in Khrysalis that we don't really see in the new worlds of Wiz, which is tragedy. The world of Khrysalis itself is a tragedy that is still in progress. While Azteca ends the tragedy, Khrysalis starts as one, and we are putting an end to it. Wiz tackles themes of tragedy in worlds such as Dragonspyre and Celestia, but the destruction of those worlds is not the main focus of our mission. It's too late for them, but in Khrysalis there is still hope. Khrysalis' themes and overall tone is much different from other worlds in Wiz. They really committed to the dark hues of purple and blue early on, and they tackled the concepts of tragedy and death much more in this world than they did in any other world, and I really loved that for this game. The worlds after Khrysalis are good. Arc 3 is my favorite arc overall, honestly, but we never get the level of tragedy or heartbreak that we get with Khrysalis. Khrysalis felt final. It felt like this was the end. The tragedy of Khrysalis is what keeps me invested. I want to learn more about what Khrysalis once was, what Morgantha destroyed, and what a new restored Khrysalis could look like. The scene that stuck with me the most of this tragedy was walking around ruined Bastion and listening to the dialogue of the mice trapped in Crystal. They're not alive, but not necessarily dead either. Crystal husks of their former selves frozen in time 100 years ago by Morgantha. Roaming around the foggy and lifeless Bastion gives you a feeling of despair that no other world besides maybe Dragonspyre has given you up until this point. And I remember my first time questing through this world, I wanted nothing more than to restore it. Another moment that really solidified the theme of tragedy for me in Khrysalis was in Fort Rockius, when we ventured into the room where Morgantha kept trophies. And the Jade Azteca store that helped us in the Cloudburst Forest was their dead center mounted on the wall. We also see other artifacts from worlds we've quested in the past, and it really solidified Morgantha's impact on other worlds, and also the pain that she caused culminating in Khrysalis. I loved seeing the impact Morgantha had on this once vibrant world, the once lush Conda forest being burnt down to the desert it is now, giving birth to clans of desert hoppers and cannibalistic burrowers. The remains of a once beaming and radiant Alcazar reduced to rubble with burrowers who can't even remember their previous lives. I loved seeing the ghosts of those who once stood up to Morgantha just like we're doing right now, and even the monstrosities she has cultivated like Fort Rockius. I love the stories of those who helped her reach this world and how it led to their downfall. And last but not least, I loved seeing the backstory of a once curious girl on a quest for knowledge and how that quest ended up in her becoming the monster she is today, and ultimately how it led to her downfall by our hands. All of it comes together and writes the story, or rather tragedy, of Khrysalis. Now I want to talk about what really solidified Khrysalis as my favorite role in the entire game, and that would be Part 2 Khrysalis. The main thing that people complain about with Part 1 Khrysalis is the repetitive quests in areas like Tyrian Gorge and Last Wood, but Part 2 does not have this problem. We keep moving from place to place in Part 2. Part 2 starts off with you leaving Fort Rockius after defeating the formidable Ghost Dog and making your way down to Crescent Beach to start another chapter of your journey. You must then navigate the treacherous Starfall Sea to reach the ruined Alcazar and give it life again in the form of Radiance Reborn. You then go to the condensed urban area of Sardonyx, and then later the desolate wastelands of Conda Desert, before finally going to the dark and mysterious Hive, home to the unforgiving and unrelenting Arachna who will try to kill or betray you any chance they get. Hive especially seems like it took a lot of time to make, and I'm considering Shadow Palace as an extension of the Hive in this scenario. When KingsIsle really wants to make unique areas, they can excel. While Khrysalis Part 1 had areas that looked the same or bland in some cases like Tyrian Gorge, every area of Part 2 has a more distinct feel to it, and a certain uniqueness that you don't see in other worlds in Arc 2. Characters such as our main man Devim, Captain Coleridge, and later Old Cobb also make the dialogue in Part 2 Khrysalis a lot of fun. My personal favorite memory of questing through Arc 2 was actually questing through the Hive on my fire during online school when it was the end of the year and we weren't doing much. I was kinda just on a whiz during those times, honestly. Dungeons like the galleries, as well as the downward descent towards reaching Old Cobb, were also very interesting, and I could tell I worked very hard on the both of them. Part 2 of Khrysalis is also when you get access to Darkmoor gear, so that makes questing a lot more bearable with the new stats, especially when compared to Azteca, and questing through that world without any companions and having to deal with Waterworks gear. Areas in Part 2 Khrysalis feel a lot shorter than in Part 1 because of how you're not going back and forth between each area, and also some areas don't feature many boss fights at all. In Conda Desert specifically, there's only one boss fight, which gives you a very nice breather in between Sardonyx and the Hive, which is very needed as Hive has a lot of bosses because it's the last thing in between you and the Shadow Palace, which is where you'll ultimately have your final showdown with Morgantha. I really like the music of this world. In my opinion, it's some of the best in the game. I remember my first time hearing the tracks a few years ago, I knew that I would love Khrysalis. From the epic battle theme to the solemn music of the Last Wood and the original Bastion theme, every track is a perfect fit for the area, and to me at least, it's instantly recognizable. Throughout this video, I've been using them as background music and honestly used to listen to these while studying in high school in a playlist. I remember one time I was in AP Gov my junior year listening to Khrysalis themes with my friend Chris. We had our earbuds in, and our teacher saw us with the earbuds, showed up to our desk and was like, "What are y'all listening to?" before turning on the phone, and he had this confused look on his face after reading aloud Wizard101 Khrysalis combat theme too. And I don't know guys, I just think he didn't understand it was an absolute bop, in my opinion. Personally, my favorite piece in this world is the last wood theme, which is playing right now in the background. Your wizard is venturing from the ruined bastion to this place of final resistance known as the Last Wood, where sugar gliderers and burrowers have been fighting the Shadow Queen for generations. The theme itself is slow and solemn, having an almost eerie ring to it, as you don't know what to expect. It was the perfect introduction to one of the first areas of the world, and even though the area itself is grindy and admittedly hard to play through at some points, this theme is a certified classic. The Last Wood isn't the only place where music is great though. Bastion themes are also great. From the slow and sad initial track of a cold and desolate world without hope, it later transforms into a theme that represents a thriving place full of life and hope. This was the first and potentially only time where they actually changed the theme for an area after completing a certain questline, which I honestly wish that they did more. The Conda Desert and Mooncliffs themes are also amazing. The Mooncliffs theme once again gives off the air of an eerie place where you must face off against enemies who you don't yet know of, and the Conda Desert is giving off the vibe of an unforgiving wasteland. It starts off with a sharp noise like something scraping against metal and builds up as the track goes on, although it ultimately keeps this disheartening tempo, potentially symbolizing the grief Morgantha has caused to the Conda. I hope y'all enjoyed my video glazing Khrysalis. Keep in mind that this is all my opinion and you could disagree if you'd like. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below and leave a like and a sub if you enjoyed this video. It would be very much appreciated. Thank you all so much for 100 subs. I did not expect to reach this milestone this soon, if at all. And to celebrate, I'll be doing a double upload next week, and I'll also be streaming later this week or this weekend. As always, I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.